Good morning and welcome to the weekly Wednesday webinar. My name is Christi Holmes. I'm with the ECSO, and today we're going to be discussing working with annotation scale. What is annotation scale? Well, if you see this little icon in MicroStation that indicates an annotation scale, it's a setting lock, and it's an optional scale factor that can be applied to various MicroStation elements. Annotation scale will ensure that your print is created with annotative elements at the correct physical size, and it's dynamic. It can change various elements, the size of various elements on the fly. What annotation scale is not. It's not meant to remain static. You only want to place annotation on elements that are going to be changed. It does not work with patterns. It does not work with geopack labeler tools, and it cannot be set independently on line styles. It resizes elements according to the quote-unquote desired plotting scale. What elements in MicroStation use annotation scale? There's text fields and notes, dimensions, cells, custom line styles, and reference files. And we'll get into each one of these in just a few moments. Setting the annotation scale lock. Let's get into MicroStation. And this is a settings lock, and it can be found under the settings menu, locks, annotation scale. And if this checkbox is on, that means that the lock is turned on. If it's off, that means that the annotation scale lock is off. You can also find the lock down here at the bottom of your screen and click annotation scale. The best way to manipulate the annotation scale is using the drawing scale dialog, and that can be found under settings, drawing scale. And it's this little dialog that allows you to turn the lock on and off. If it's on, if it's highlighted, off if it's not highlighted, and it allows you to set this annotation value. The scales that are listed in here are preset values that are common to f-dot plans, and we've set these values up in what's called the scales.def file. It also has master units. You can change the master units in here, and it has access to the custom ACS or auxiliary coordinate system. This dialog box is dockable. You can move it around. This is the only dialog or place in MicroStation that you can toggle the lock on and off and set the value of the scale. The value of the scale, of the annotation scale, can also be set in the model properties. If you go to models and click on this icon with the hand, or you can right click and go to properties. You can set the value of the scale here. You cannot toggle on and off the lock here. This icon is not clickable like it is in the drawing scale dialog. You can also toggle the lock on and off in the place text command. If you notice I toggle it off, it toggles it off on the drawing scale as well. Same thing for the place note. You can also toggle it on and off in the dimensioning dialog. Now all of these, the text and dimensioning, you cannot change the value. You can just toggle the lock on and off. There are a few other places, such as the reference files has a place to toggle on and off annotation, and we'll get into that in a few moments. So let's just go out here and try to place text using annotation scale. If you're using annotation scale on your text, you want to set your text height and width to the desired size for a 1-to-1 scale. And according to the CPCH, that size is 0.07. And what happens is your annotation scale is going to multiply the scale of your height and width, and that will be 3.5, which is the desired height for 50 scale drawing. And if you just place your text out here, it looks just like it would if you were to place it at 3.5. The only difference is when you scale, it will change the size of your text on the fly. So if you were to place text at a 3.5 without annotation scale, it's going to look exactly the same. It's just that that text is not scalable. It doesn't change with the annotation scale. It's going to remain the same. Same thing goes for place note. You want to always make sure if you're using annotation scale, this is set to 0.07. Otherwise, your text will come out really large. And if you use the place note command, when you scale your text, your arrowhead will scale along with your text. The only thing you have to be careful of is if you go really small or really large, it could make the leader line look strange because the leader line doesn't scale with the size. So if we see, it looks like it's going off the leader line, so you have to be careful with that type of stuff. Also, when you're placing your text, you want to make sure that you have annotation scale set or not set, because let's say you came in here and you didn't realize your annotation lock was on and you said it was set to 3.5, but you had this set to 1 inch equals 1 inch. When you place the text, it's going to look right, but if you go to scale this plan sheet to 1 inch equals 50, because you're updating your plans, it's going to make that text really large. To fix that, you can either take the annotation scale off by IDing it and changing this is annotation to false, but that will make the text not scalable. Or you can change the value back to 0.07. And then your text will scale up and down like it's supposed to. Another text element that uses annotation scale, like I said, is the dimensions. If you use our f-dot dimension style, then everything should be set up correctly. But you want to make sure that your text and height in here is set to 0.07 with your annotation toggle on. And let's just go select something, and it places the dimension style appropriately. And if you scale it, it scales down or up like it's supposed to, and even shifts the dimensions on the outside if it needs to. I have a couple questions out here. Why do they not include all of the scales that Structures uses also? The roadway, Jimmy answered this already. The roadway workspace only shows the scales for a roadway. I haven't done this in the structures workspace, but I think that they have something set up for that. Another question is, what purpose does this serve? Why not just use the traditional text sizes? It seems to confuse and complicate things. Text is never going to change to another scale. My answer to that is sometimes you don't know if your scale is going to change. Jimmy was just telling me of a person that had set all his plan sheets up for 1=40, and on the had to change his plan sheets all of a sudden, and saved him a bunch of time because he didn't have to go through and change every piece of text or every sheet. He could just scale everything down using annotation scale. So there are benefits to it. It can be difficult sometimes using it with existing plans, and I'll show you how we've kind of streamlined that in just a few moments. Now let's talk about cells. Some cells we've set up have annotation scale. How do you know which ones are? If you notice in the cell library dialog, there is an annotation column. If the A is highlighted in this column, that means that that cell uses annotation scale. And I'll show you what I mean. So let's just place the north arrow. And again, you want to make sure your X and Y scale is set to 1 with your annotation toggle on. Because what's happening is it's going to multiply your annotation scale times that X and Y scale and give you a 50 scale cell. And when you scale it up and down, it moves accordingly, resizes. There are cells out here that do not scale up and down, such as like the bar scale. And when you place these type of cells, it's not going to matter if the annotation lock is on or off, because it's not going to scale up and down anyways. It's going to remain the same. And for these type of cells, you would have to place them at their specific X and Y values. Also, a lot of the cells we updated so that they work at a scale of 1 and not odd scales, such as the utility cells. All of these cells now should work at a standard scale of 1. They don't scale up and down because they're going to remain the same no matter what scale your drawing is, but now they don't have to be some weird scale like 5 or 10. They should all look right at the scale of 1. Same thing for survey cells. There's a comment out here, the arrow style is not the same as the arrow cell for the bar menu. That can be changed in your dimension styles or your place note. And if you go to your terminators under the geometry tab and change it to cell and then name the cell, and save it. Now when you place a dimension, oh, well, it didn't work that time. I'm not sure why it's not working, but that's how you set it. Set the different arrows. To be the cell you want. Another thing about the text in cells is, let's say you wanted to go out here and place your text for your north arrow. When you scale this up and down, it's not going to adjust accordingly. You're going to have to do some manual manipulation to get your cells and text to look correct. Now let's talk about your annotation for your model. I already showed you how you can change the annotation value. The second thing you want to know in your model is the line style scale. This can be set to annotation scale, which is what our line styles now use, and that will change the way they look. If you go out here and look right now, you can see that they look like lines. That's because they're really small, and they're using the global line style scale, which is set at a 1. So if you go out here and you update this to annotation scale, they're going to blow up and look like they're supposed to. Oh. And not all of our line styles are annotative. Some of them remain static, such as guardrail, and some of them, like the utilities, scale up and down. So if I was to come out here and place a utility line, such as like a water line, it's going to look right for the 50 scale. But if I change this model property back to global line style scales, it's going to look really small, and that's because my global line style scale is at a 1. Some lines, like I said, guardrail, I just got here and placed guardrail. They remain static. So it doesn't matter what I change my value to, it's going to remain the same, and that's because this line style is now set so that the posts are 12.5 feet apart, just like they're supposed to be, and it doesn't matter what your scale is, they still need to be 12.5 feet apart. And there's other line styles that are static like that, such as some in the MOT and the signing and pavement marking, and I can get a list of the ones that are static out to the Bentley community site if that would be helpful. I have a comment out here that says the problem with using annotation scale is that all projects have multi-users and it's difficult to maintain. This is correct. If you're going to commit to using annotation scale, everybody needs to use it. You can't have one person using it and one not, because you're, like I showed you before, somebody has it turned off or turned on, your text will blow up and things will get messed up. So if you have multiple users, everybody needs to be using it. As for references, there is a toggle for reference files. If you go to your reference file dialog, if you notice down here in the bottom, there's a little toggle to use active annotation scale. And this option can be set to tell your reference files to use the annotation scale of the current file. So let's say you needed to change the scale of a sheet and you didn't want to change the scales of all your reference files, you could use this option. There's also, I already have it up, the column, but if you right click on this and click to use active annotation scale, it's just like another toggle in your reference dialog. Now let's talk about updating your existing plans to use annotation scale and our new line styles. So I'm going to go into a different file. I have a question that says, can you reset your text from non-annotation scale to annotation scale globally? If so, how? Yeah, I believe you can. If you select all of your text, and all this text is not in this file, but if you select a piece of text and ID it, you can change the formatting from here to is annotation is true or false. If it's true, that means it has annotation applied. If it's false, it does not. Another question is, what if everyone is not using SS2? I have problems with line styles like guardrail blowing up as I'm using SS2. The guardrail is blowing up because it's now set to use a scale of 1. Before, you would set your line styles to use a global line style scale of 50 or whatever your plot cell was. All of your lines should now use a global scale of 1, and the annotation scale should be applied. Another question is, sometimes it's not desired to use the 3.5 text size. If you wanted to use the minimum size of 3, instead of setting your text value to 0.7 here, you would set it to 0.6, because basically all it's doing is going to multiply this height and width value times the value of your annotation scale. So that would be 0.06 times 50 would be a size of 3. Another question is, does annotation scale work for plan view labeler? No, it does not. Plan view labeler does have a scaling technique, but it's not incorporated with the annotation scale. Okay, so if you wanted to update your existing plans, first go into your plan file and see if it picked up your line styles automatically. And some of them it looks like it did, some of them it didn't. The first process you want to run is on our actions menu. We have a new set of tools for your custom line styles. Go to Custom Line Style Utilities and click on Clear Embedded Line Styles. And what this is going to do is merge your existing file with the new seed file and get rid of any old standards or resources. And once that's done, you have to do a fit view. And if it looks like some of your line styles, like this gas one, is not using the updated line style, you want to make sure that all of your line work is using bi-level symbology. So if I match this, I can see that the line style is not set to bi-level. So to fix that, you want to just go to Edit, Select by Attributes, select your lines and line strings, and then toggle all of this off except for style, and then it updates the line work. The next thing you want to do is go into your model properties. Make sure your value is set to whatever your plan sheet should be. So this one is 1 inch equals 40, and it blows. See how it blows all of your line work up? That's because these are set to use the old global line style scales of 40, and so it thinks to multiply 40 times 40. So to fix that, go back to the Actions menu, and we have a tool out here that sets your custom line style to a scale of 1. Click on that, and that will change everything back to a scale of 1. And now all of your plan should be up to date. Let's see, I have some more questions. Denise answered this question. Can we use text values between 0.06, 0.1, and 0.07? You can, but the standard f-dot values are the 0.06, 0.07, and 0.1. Can I please do what again? I'm not sure what you want me to do. Can I repeat how Geopack Labeler is not affected by annotation scale? Okay, so let's just open up Geopack Labeler. In Geopack Labeler, you can set a scale for yourself to say 50 or 40, and then set your parameters to 0.07 for your text. And that will scale it to that scale that you set. But when you change your annotation scale in your plan sheet or in your model, it's not going to affect that text. So let's just go out here and place some text. Oh, it's not going to do it now, but if you place your text and it's scaled at that, it's not going to scale that text at all. It's going to remain the same. So it doesn't work with annotation scale in the plan view. The line style cleanup, that is done by going to the Actions, Custom Line Style Utilities, Clear Embedded Line Styles. And so you're going to have to do this for all the files that use custom line styles. And because we've had a lot of people say that that takes a lot of time, Jimmy and I decided to create a batch process that will do this for, you could do this for multiple files, and I'll show you how to do that. I'm going to post this batch file on the Bentley community site, so you'll be able to use it. I'm going to do that after the webinar, but basically you just go to Utilities, Batch Process. You add the files that you want to include. Let's do design file. Then you go out and select the batch file that you download. You want to make sure that this initial model is set to all models so that it will convert all your models within a file. And then you click this Process Batch job, and it'll bring up this dialog with all of your files you selected, and you just click Process. And this will go in to all of your files. It'll clean up the old line styles. It will set all your line styles to a 1, and it will change your model properties to use annotation scale instead of the global line style scale. You can, I have a question out here. What about, without Geopack Plan View Labeler, what method do you use to place pluses and offset? You can still use Geopack Plan View Labeler. You just won't be able to scale it up and down. I mean, you can integrate using things that won't scale up and down with things that do scale up and down. You just have to be careful how you do it. The batch files I'll be putting on the Bentley community site right after the webinar. And you can get to that from our website. I'll show you how to get to that site in a minute. And if you go in here, all your files have been updated, and these still look really small, and that's because my annotation scale is set to 1. So all of those files in my batch process have just been updated, and I didn't have to go into each file and do that. As far as like plan sheets, the only thing that you should have to do to your plan sheets is toggle on that model property to use the annotation scale. Let's go into see, everything looks really small right now. And then sometimes when you, in your plan sheets, you do have to clear the embedded line styles too, and I can post a batch process for that as well on the Bentley community site. Does this mean that I will have to run this process on any old projects that I have to bring up to SS2? Yes, most likely you're going to have to run it. I haven't seen really any files that just automatically picks up the file, the old line styles correctly. And I'm going to show you how you can get to the Bentley community site from our website. You go down to where is it at? Somebody help me out. There it is. They changed it around on me. Okay, so here's our Bentley Communities site, and we have a forum out here with all kinds of files and CAD questions. If you don't use this site, you need to, because there's a lot of stuff out here. Basically, you just go to our main webpage, go to More, and f.bentley resources, and it'll bring it up. And I'll post it out there today. Do the move or edit commands now work on Geopack Labeler? I'm not sure what commands you're talking about. If you could explain a little bit further detail, I could answer that question. Do I still need to use plot scale? Yes, you still need to use plot scale. There's certain tools of ours that still use plot scale, such as LDM and various other things on the FDOT menu. So you still will need to use plot scale. However, we are trying to move to annotation scale, and all of this will be changed eventually. So it's a good time to get familiar with it while it's in growing stages. And if you have any questions, you can always call me. The good, the bad, and the ugly. The good thing is that annotatable items are designed to work at different scales, and they can be changed immediately. They can be updated fast, and if you need to change the scale, you can do it easily instead of doing it for every sheet and every file and every piece of text. The bad is changing scales is not a magic solution. You do have to do some manual adjustment. You do have to move text around, move cells around. The ugly is your existing drawings. They can be troublesome. They can be time consuming. With the batch process, hopefully that'll take some time away from having to update every file and every line style. And if you have any questions, you can always contact me or the ECSO office, and we can help you out. And I still have questions up here that I'm going to answer. So, the Geopack Labeler tools have the commands to move or edit the Geopack label without the use of MicroStation. Go to the Options label tools. Yeah, that's still there. I mean, Geopack Labeler hasn't changed at all. It's just that it's not, it doesn't adjust with annotation scale. Will Geopack Labeler ever support annotation scale? Yes, I think eventually all of the labeling tools will support it. I think that's what they're moving towards. I know that the Geopack, the cross-section labeler does support it now, but the plan view and profile view don't. Another question is, for some reason they don't work with Select Series 3. What doesn't work with Select Series 3? The line styles? And there's another question up here. I didn't see your line styles change. There they go. I didn't have my annotation scale set, but in the plan view, that's the only thing you should have to do is change your model properties to use the annotation scale instead of the global line style cells. If you set it back, they come really small. You also want to make sure that your annotation toggle is on and that it's set to the correct value. I think this is supposed to be a 40 scale sheet. And I'm going to send out a file that just does that too, that you can run on your plan sheets as a batch process. And basically you would just go to Utilities, Batch Process. Oh, it's already open. Delete all these. Add your plan files, whichever ones. Click to apply to all models, and then select, I think it's, I have another one that turns on the annotation scale, and you run that just like you would on your design files. Another question is, what about the shoulder pavement hatch lines? The shoulder pavement hatch lines work just like the guardrail. They don't scale up and down. They remain the same because they are always going to be at a steady 5 feet, 10 feet, 12 feet. So they remain static. I don't see any more questions. Where do I learn how to write the batch files? I've already created the batch files for you. All you have to do is apply them to a batch process, and I'll lay out steps on the community site with the files posted, so you know exactly what to do. If there's not any more questions, that's about all I have. Again, if you have questions, or if you can't get your plan sheets to work right, or your design files to look right, give me a call and I can run you through how everything works and how to upgrade. And you can always send me an email. Here, I'll bring it back up. Here's my email. If you need to email me, or there's my direct line too if you need to call me with any questions. And that's it for today. Have a great day.